welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. This is Meghan.
Hello.
As I've said, I think I've mentioned it on a different podcast, but I know you through Sable.
Yep.
You guys both worked at Vintage Stock in Edmond, and then you both related off of cosplay stuff, and then became
nerdy
best friends
stuff.
after that.
We were in the same interview.
Yeah.
And based on my answers and based on Sable's answers, we clicked. We're like, I'm gonna like this girl. It's 5 years later, and we're best friends. So.
Yeah. Yeah, which is pretty good because at the time, Sable had been lost for friends, and then we through you, we sort of leaked into your group of friends, and now we're just a part of your group of friends now.
That's so awesome. All because of Vintage Talk.
Yeah.
I can owe some of my friendship with Vintage Talk.
Yeah.
Even though I'm also.
Okay. So you
Me.
are a graphic designer.
I am.
Sorry. Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at UCO, University of Central Oklahoma, as you are going right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or ACM, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. Graphic design program for 5 years. Illustration minor. I graduated in 2014. Yeah? 2014. I did an internship in the summer, and then I got hired on where I'm currently working in October, fall-ish of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, so I guess you're is this the career that you're totally wanting to do, or are you going somewhere slightly different?
Oh yeah, no, this is where I'm going. Well, I mean, graphic design, I'm not sure if I'll be staying at the same place I'm at currently for the rest of my life, but graphic design for sure is it. Whether that trickles into illustration more or less, or photography or freelance.
Yeah.
I haven't really decided yet. That's kind of just where that path takes me.
Yeah.
But after that program, I'm sticking with it.
Yeah. What made you decide, because everyone leaving high school is I don't know, I guess I'll pick something.
Right.
Were you very much oh no, this is what I'm doing?
It's really weird actually, because when I was leaving graphic design, when I was leaving high school, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Mm-hmm. I don't know what made me choose graphic design, but I was oh, this thing sounds cool, I'll try it.
It's the thing closest to art.
Yeah. And I remember having a multimedia class, the closest thing to graphic design, which I actually met Maddie in, which is interesting, because that's where I first knew her. Anyway, that's a tangent. But literally, I was just okay, I'll just try graphic design because I'm kind of familiar with what that may be. And so it was literally my first class, my first day of college was probably my hardest class that semester, with one of the teachers that significantly influenced my graphic design career. Was the first experience I had of college. And so I was whoa, this is crazy. They sent us out on a scavenger hunt and told us all these things. I was I think I'm going to like this. Turns out it was exactly what I wanted to do, because it's kind of taking art and creativity and applying it in all sorts of ways to display message and have meaning.
What was your understanding of graphic design before that?
Nothing. I was oh, it's when you make cool stuff in Photoshop, right?
Yeah.
It's not when you just make cool stuff in Photoshop. So I literally knew nothing. I thought it was just, tutorial books, and I didn't even really know what field or what job I would get from it. I thought maybe, I had read something about a graphic design studio that you go in your jeans and sweatshirts and you get to chill. So I was oh, I'll go for that job. And so based off that and little knowledge I had before, I was going towards it through college and committing. So I guess I got lucky.
Yeah. Okay, so you have an illustration minor.
Yes.
Which, for those of you who have listened to Sable's podcast, illustration is a little bit different.
Hi, Sable.
Illustration is a little bit different. So, what are the differences between graphic design and illustration?
Well, illustration is actually probably one of the reasons that led me into design, because before I graduated in middle school, around 6th grade, I started drawing. So I was really interested in art from there on. Illustration is different from graphic design because it sort of focuses on the imagery mainly, and it's usually, drawn out in some way, shape, or form. So traditionally, digitally, vectored, whatever. That's essentially illustration. And that can be applied over anything. You'll see illustration within design or separate from it. They work together, but they can also be exclusive. So yeah.
Do you consider yourself an illustrator as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, probably almost more than a designer, because design's kind of like my job and I love it, but illustration is kind of more of a passion. I'll find myself doodling and illustrating on breaks at work. So to me, that shows me that's where, whether I pursue that full-time as a job or not, that's a passion I'll always have. So I'll equally call myself an illustrator, even though there wasn't a major in it. Now, if UCO had a major for illustration, I probably would have gone for that. So, yeah.
Were you one of those, like, artsy kids, or, like, well, I guess there's, like, an extent to that, but, like, were you just, like, the person that everyone was like, oh, Meghan can draw? Like, there was always those kids in school.
Kind of, but I was probably in the, like, middle of that. There were other people that were way more artsy than I was, and then there were other people that were kind of, like, around my level. Me and Cheryl kind of vibed off each other. I just keep name-dropping a bunch of people, so, by the way, all of our friends. So we kind of vibed off each other and grew and learned from each other. And she was the one that originally inspired me to draw to begin with. So I owe a lot of where I kind of went from her. So kind of, anytime there was like this creative artsy project, it would be like, oh, well, they can do it. So I was kind of in that category. But I really didn't, like, grow until I got into college with illustration and design, and it, like, 180 from where I started.
But were you always, like, wanting to... Was there ever, like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor or something? Like...
I originally wanted to be a writer.
Okay. For, like, just fiction? Or...
Novels, fiction, young adult fiction.
What made you want to do that?
I was a nerd, and when I was super into Pokemon, I wrote Pokemon fan fiction. Oh, yeah, so fan fiction gets all the nerd writers started, right? So, hi guys, I'm a nerd. But I started writing, and then I kind of started realizing I like creating my own stories, and I loved storytelling in general. Which sort of kind of vibes well with graphic design and illustration, because through all those mediums you can tell story. Tell stories, like that's kind of what their intent is. So... I still want to pursue writing at some point as like a side thing, but
you've always just been like right brain creativity side.
I guess so. But to an extent, I have some left brain because I can't just be like an art person where you splatter something and you call it art. Like I really like stuff to be creative and beautiful, but have a purpose behind it, because.
Yeah, well, graphic design...
What's the point?
Graphic design is probably, like, the most, like, I guess, mathematical of the arts, in a way.
That's a good way to put it. It's kind of...
I think I once described to you, actually, like, art is a guy with a mohawk. Graphic design is a guy with a mohawk in a suit.
In a suit, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
So, like... Still a creative guy, but, like, he has a business to run, you know?
Right, exactly. And it's kind of taking that and applying it somewhere.
Yeah. How does that art stuff sort of vibe with your parents? Tell me a little bit about your parents.
My parents are totally opposite of that. They're actually in healthcare. And they vibed off of their parents to get into healthcare, and they excel in that, and they're amazing in their jobs. But I kind of always had a feeling that wasn't for me. But they were always extremely supportive and encouraging of my artsy, fartsy side and where I was going. So that was never really a problem. They were kind of like, oh, where'd this come from? But, I mean, there's creative genes in them as well, because... They're very intellectual, but also very creative. Yeah. So I just got the creative in a different way.
Your dad doesn't stop talking to me about music. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But so it's interesting to hear that like medical parents are generally okay with like, oh, like my daughter wants to do art. This is fine. Mm-hmm. Like
this is fine.
Just because like I don't know, because my dad is also like an engineer and like mathematical and stuff, and so like for me and my brother to be like in music is like sort of odd, but in the same way that like they're still supportive. And so how did that, I guess, like, could they really help you in school? Like, did you...
I mean, a lot of it was just them being supportive through any activities I was a part of. So they were very supportive and active when I was in band, which kind of fostered some of my creativity, even though I never pursued music. It was kind of a friend and an extracurricular activity I did. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, they helped me in the terms of kind of giving me encouragement and advice on things, but as it comes to technical things within art or whatever, not so much. But, I mean, to an extent, you have to sell your art and your creativity to people that also don't indulge in it either. So they, if anything, they would be an objective audience, and I would get that kind of feedback from them. But they're very helpful in the sense of encouragement, so which is just as much needed.
What would you play in band?
I was trombone. What'd you play in band?
Trombone.
You were trombone, yeah. Trombone, baritone. Represent.
I don't know what it is about like the marching band, like it just like makes kids both like extremely creative, but if they don't end up really creative, they end up being like really disciplined.
One of the most influential people in my life, I will hands down say, is my band director, Darnell Zook, who is currently at Yukon High School, but he completely fostered creativity, discipline, his main tagline, he said, was, you know, you pursue excellence and success will pursue you, which was on all of our t-shirts, and it just ran through all of us in high school, and it was all about the best performance, and it really helped teach us, regardless where we went after high school, that's what you have to kind of go for, which is what just further made me realize, okay, it's not all about having this really super secure financial well-off job. I mean, I am secure right now, but I'm not like making millions or anything, but I don't dread going into work every day. I really love what I do. And in a sense, the excellence is now there, and so the success will just come after. So.
What is work like for you?
Right now it's, well, I won't name my employer.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just so, you know, logistical stuff, but it's a corporate graphic design job, which is kind of different. So there's a lot of people. It's about 120-ish creatives within the department, and then you're kind of separated into separate teams depending on what you design and where you fit. And it's 8 to 5, 8:30 to 5 every day, Monday through Friday kind of thing. Pretty corporate and standard in that way, but every day you're working on something different, and sometimes you'll be like really slow, and then sometimes at 4 o'clock they'll dump a bunch of stuff on your desk saying, hey, this is due by noon tomorrow, and you're like, all right. So it kind of keeps you on your toes in that way, so I'm constantly having to be alert. That's pretty much...
Yeah, I guess a lot of artists, or I guess there's this sense of like artists going into like a more like employee corporate sort of field that like feel like their creativity is being like squandered by like the 9 to 5 job. How do you feel like that affects?
I mean, honestly, some days I do struggle with that because it is very corporate, and even design in general, a lot of it is very creatively managed. So you have a creative director, you have a team of people you're working with. You won't get to 100% own your ideas or have your hand in your ideas, right? But you'll be a part of the team that helps create that. So that's kind of cool. Sometimes it can be so heavily directed where you're just, I'm getting paid to do this, let's just get it done. Which is fine, because when you go through 10 to 15 jobs a week, you don't want to have like, 40 hours per job because you'd go crazy. So you kind of focus on getting done what you can get done. And then there's certain projects that'll come around where they'll be like, you can be totally creative with this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you kind of spoil and you spend your time on.
Yeah.
So you put that time and effort into there. And I mean, I guess it doesn't bother me as much as maybe other people because I have other creative pursuits I enjoy on the side. So illustration, photography, cosplay, stuff like that, you know, is a way I can come home from that and leave work at work and come back and be creative in other ways. Kind of helps you keep from getting burnt out.
And also in a way, like, I guess you get the added bonus of it still being like a creatively fulfilling job in the sense that like you still get to like practice in your day job while you work on other stuff that actually uses those same skills.
Right. I mean, I'm always, you know, like, experience is experience. So you kind of have to reap what you sow kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you just sit around and, I don't want to do this, you're not going to get anything from it. But if you're like, okay, you know, I've created these 10 boring things. Well, I need to learn something from this. So this 11th boring thing, I'm really going to, like, you know, soak in and, you know, you have a bunch of different projects. And so you need to take that advantage to learn more from each one. So try something different each time, even something little, stuff like that.
What would you consider to be like your dream job?
Oh man. I don't really foresee it in like a specific area or place, because I don't necessarily want to just uproot or anything, but if it ever came around to it, just the environment to be very kind of more, or a little smaller, very comfortable, casual, small studio kind of thing, located in an urbanish kind of city area, and just going in every day, like kind of running your own hours, running your own schedule, working around with other creatives, doing maybe more illustration work than I do now, on top of design work and working with other clients. Because the type of job I'm in now, it's more product design, so you don't really work with clients per se. Like the buyers are your clients. So kind of having, I guess I just described a more just small studio graphic design kind of feel, which a lot of places like that, you have to have 3 to 5 years professional experience to get into anyway. I mean, I guess I could name drop, like, you know, like working for Disney or something would be really cool. But that's never been like super big dream, because I also just like would want to have the rest of my dream with family, friends, and things within my reach. If that makes sense. Like that honestly comes before work. So,
family, a much more important principle than work. Why is that? Not so much that it's weird, but more so just that it is.
I think it has to just come about with how I was raised. Like, I kind of witnessed, like, my parents put a lot of time and energy into work solely. And they never neglected us or anything. But they were they weren't fulfilled by it at all. And so they were happiest when they were with their family or, you know, resting. So I kind of learned from that, you know, I want to pursue something I'm going to be happy in every day and not regret going to work. And then, secondly, I want to be surrounded with more relationships with family, friends, because that's true. Like, work and jobs will always just be a job. Like, even if you get your dream job, it'll still be a job. There will still be work involved. It'll be fulfilling and rewarding, but it's still work. But, you know, once you get off work, it's your friends and your family you go to talk about what happened, whether good or bad. And if you just don't have that and all you have is the fulfilling job, you don't have anyone to share it with. Does that make sense? So it's kind of where my philosophy's always been with that.
Then what's kind of your take on the whole, like, oh, get a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life? Like,
I mean, it's... Okay, so I really love the IGN podcast, as you know, right? Well, they kind of go back and forth discussing this, just being like, even though they have their job, it's still work, and it was kind of disenchanting for a while, but then you come back because it's still fulfilling. So that quote doesn't make sense to me, because if you don't work even at your dream job, then you won't get further in your dream job, and you may lose your dream job. So I get the principle behind it, but I honestly think, you know, even if you get this amazing thing, even if you're happy at it, it'll still be work at some points. So I might just be like an old fogey when I say that.
No, I mean, it's also just like, where you are and who you are, but like,
Right.
Especially just like being in music for me, that a lot of stuff is like, you know, you want to take your creativity and then like make it like entirely successful, but kind of like as you're saying, if it becomes your whole life, it doesn't become as rewarding,
Right.
as if you have people around you,
Right.
to care about you.
I kind of see it as if you see yourself, you know, like within music or something, you're at a performance or something that you have fostered this creative thing that's like your baby, and you're at this like party, and there's everybody there surrounded with people, and you turn around and there's no one around you to share in your enjoyment, then it makes what you fostered not feel as rewarding.
Yeah.
Even though you did put a lot of work towards it. Some people, it's the opposite. They're very independent in that way, and they can enjoy that independently, which that's great. But I think in a lot of ways, everybody wants relationships and connections.
Yeah.
To share their, you know, progress with.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a part of being a human being, if you would agree.
So deep. Being a human being.
I mean,
I would
sure.
agree. Oh, yeah.
So I guess bridging that into what do you believe? How were you raised? What is your views on the world?
Oh, man. That was a good bridge, though. That was a good segue. Well, I started off being raised Roman Catholic. Was not a believer at all through that, because it was kind of more just legalistic based. So it's like, you know, I didn't understand the meaning behind it. If that makes sense.
It is difficult to grow up as a Catholic.
Because you don't really know what's going on. Like, funny story, when I was young, we were going to give the offering as the family for that Sunday Mass or whatever. And when we were practicing, my parents took me up down the aisle, and I thought I was in trouble, and I thought the priest was God. And so I started bawling my face off, because I was like, don't, I didn't do anything wrong. And they were just like, why are you crying? But I was like, I didn't really understand what was going on. I mean, I was also really young then.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of like perfectly defines the rest of it too. I was just kind of going through the motions, because it's how I was raised. And then through through high school, I kind of had some falling out with some friends, and I connected with Cheryl again. We became a lot closer. She invited me to her church, which is First Baptist Church in Piedmont. And through there, I met her, Ethan, so many other people that are still in my life today and very impactful in my life today. Through there, I went to youth group and Sunday service in Falls Creek. And then it was Falls Creek where I went down and committed my life to Christ, which means I'm a Christian. And it was actually Cheryl who led me, so that was pretty cool. She was one of the leaders. And ever since then, I went through there for a while, and then I kind of fell off from that church in college. Was really lost for a while. I didn't really know what I believed. Then I kind of reconnected with Life Church again because of also Cheryl's influence. Hi, Cheryl. She was like, come to Life Church. And
I should have Cheryl on this podcast.
Yeah, you should have Cheryl on this podcast. So I went to Life Church with her and went there for a long time. And I still go there, obviously. But even there, I kind of feel like not as connected. And so I started realizing I really crave more knowledge. And, you know, I was kind of technically in this Baptist evangelical Christian camp. And so, but I never felt totally fulfilled or understanding even from there. Because it was a lot of the same teachings each time. Like, they didn't go deeper like I wanted. So I kind of started seeking that out on my own, and I discovered a bunch of podcasts, because this is around the time I started work. So I'm at a computer all day, I listen to stuff. So I listen to podcasts, and shout out to Popcorn Theology. These Go to 11. Those two podcasts are very, like, kind of Christian, like, under the sun topic kind of thing. And they really hooked me onto just different types of theology to study. And I realized what I was craving was that discipleship and studying of theology within Christianity. So that's where I'm at currently.
What caused you to sort of, I guess, like, fall out while you were in college?
It was probably the distance. I was living on campus in Edmond, and Piedmont Baptist Church was 20-30 minutes away. That's not really an excuse, but on Sundays I was like, this is my rest day. I pulled all-nighters throughout the week, that kind of thing. So I kind of just stopped going on that principle. And I think it was also just, it felt kind of stale. It was kind of an inclusive church. You didn't really see a lot of diversity there. You heard every Sunday invite people, and no one else new showed up. More people kind of went away. So that kind of just felt kind of like complacent and stagnant. So I kind of just fell off from that. And what really appealed me about Life Church was that there was so much diversity. And you saw new people every week. The only thing I'm struggling about with them now is just the grandness of it is hard to feel connected to. And then just the further studying. Like, I still just want more. But, yeah.
There is this kind of, like, because there's so many people at Life Church that it's almost like so many people and nobody to connect with, if that makes sense.
It does.
And so it makes sense that you are sort of seeking a little bit more depth in what's being, or I guess in what you're finding, just because while Life Church's like sermons and stuff are really good, like they really don't go as in depth, kind of because they're
beginner kind of church.
Yeah, it's beginner, and it's also just going to such a large number of people that if they were to go any deeper, it would just like
turn people off.
Yeah.
It's very evangelical based, which sole purpose is to get people through the door and get them to know the gospel, which is great. I'm all for any church that does that.
Yeah.
It's just after a while, you really have to start growing and fostering your faith. And even if you're in life groups or whatever, you need to be learning, studying like really deeply in the Word, so you can really back up your faith. So you're not just like, well, yeah, Jesus and me, man, you know, like you do you. It's kind of, you need to like grow more, or else you'll just constantly keep plateauing. Yeah, which is what I was doing for a while.
There is a sort of balance between, I guess, going like 100% like relationship based and being like zero, like, I guess, doctrine based. I wish there was like a better word.
No, that's like, I'm fine with that word.
But like, there are like churches or different like forms of Christianity that go like extremely just like relationship based, and like, oh, you don't have to read the Bible, it's all just like your relationship with Jesus and God, like don't worry about anything. But then there's like again, you were raised Roman Catholic, and that's like that's almost entirely like, this is doctrine, and I don't care about your relationship as long as you do the things that the book says. And there is a balance in between.
I agree.
What is it that you're finding the most interesting in your, I guess, theological quest?
So, yeah, to go back to your point about the Roman Catholicism thing, I think since I've started studying more, I've gone back to appreciating and understanding that more, though there's still a lot I don't agree with. The fact that it is more doctrine kind of based, even if some of the doctrine might be flawed, it's still kind of rich in that versus the super pushy evangelical contemporary you know, kind of thing, which that's fine too. Like you said, it's a marriage. What I've been studying is Reformed theology, which I believe is kind of what I kind of believe in now, and it's essentially based on doctrines of grace and the five solas, which is from the Reformation. I had a note.
Oh, you can explain away. That's what this is notes.
For. Yeah. Where did it go? Here we go. Okay, the five solas. Sola fide, which is by faith alone. Scriptura, which is by scripture alone. Christus, by Christ alone. Gratia, by grace alone. And Gloria, glory to God alone. So essentially investing in those is the main doctrine of belief. And then it's about the sovereignty of God. So God's sovereignty and rulership over everything in your life. Christian liberties. So essentially what appealed me to it the most is, with the whole Christian liberties thing, is, you have a lot of the Christians that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. They try and make these like specific lists. Mm-hmm. You can't watch this, you can't listen to this, or whatever. And that always struggled with that for a while, because it always was like, well, I feel wrong doing this. But whenever I've been studying more, and especially what over those podcasts kind of go over a lot, is everything is about like kind of a mindful consideration of what you're doing. Yeah. Based in scripture, based in conviction. Should you be watching this thing or doing this thing? And it may be different for other people. Yeah. And there's obviously some that are totally drawn in the line, like you can't, past this certain point. Yeah. You can't just like, justify pornography or something like that, right? Because that's in scripture is wrong. Yeah. So from there you kind of create like this, through your studying and through your prayer, you can figure out kind of where you should be. If that makes sense? Yeah. It's a little bit easier to like apply versus when you just get told you can or can't do this. You're not thinking about anything with your discernment, but also with your discernment in Christ. Plus, the other part of it is within sovereignty, it's kind of about you can't make the decision, because if you wanted to make the decision to follow Christ, you already have been transformed. Does that make sense? Because it kind of follows along. I have verses.
That's fine.
Not trying to get all preachy, but here we go. Do. Ephesians 2:10. 2:8 through 10, sorry. God saved you by his grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it, for we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. So it's kind of like what is different from evangelical to reformed is evangelical is very much like you get to choose what you want to do. Yeah. But if you already choose that you want to do it, you've already kind of had that transformation, because it's not necessarily, because you don't, by our nature, we don't want to choose it. But if we suddenly do, there's something else that's happened there. Does that make sense? Yeah. I hope I'm not getting like too crazy. I'm still studying all of this. Yeah. So if I'm like misrepresenting anything, I apologize.
Well, at the same time, this is also about what your understanding of what you believe. Yeah. Not even necessarily about what is right or what is right under which umbrella.
Right. Because, I mean, I just don't want to misrepresent like the Reformed theology and the Reformed people, because they're very graceful, obviously, because it's all about grace. But I don't want to like misrepresent anything, because it can get kind of hairy. Because a lot of people are like, "Wait, you mean you can't? That gives you an excuse not to witness to people?" And I'm like, not really, because you don't know what your words can say and how they may affect someone to eventually understand that God's been in their life all along. Does that make sense? So it kind of falls under that umbrella. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure I made a bunch of evangelical people mad, but I don't care.
It's fine.
I'm still considered that kind of. Yeah, like, well, you can be a mix of both.
Again, this is you.
It is.
And so with you, I guess since you just brought it up, what is your view on witnessing to people, or choosing the more evangelical side of Christianity?
Well, I definitely think as Christians, we are the church, so we're called to spread the gospel. And you can only do that through being a witness. But that doesn't necessarily mean knocking on doors and putting up flyers. You need to have like conversations with people, or else they're never going to get it. It's just going to fall, under white noise with everything else, right? So to me, witnessing is just having like a conversation with someone, or just being that light in the world, trying to show how I've been transformed through Christ. Because I definitely have. From where I started to now, it's pretty significant. So trying to explain that message to people as well is a form of witnessing to me. As well as just having all the basic gospel covered within that moment of conversation. Yeah,
but should you go out of your way to just like go up to anyone who you think needs help or whatever?
I think it's always situationally based. I probably should be a little bit more proactive about witnessing and who I talk to, just in daily conversation, or, you know, I'm not going to, like, go out of my way and fling my arm at somebody.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I feel like it's just kind of back to the whole prayerful, mindful thing, just kind of meditating on that in the moment and trying to just see within yourself what you should do, if that makes sense. Yeah. I definitely think if you're having a conversation with someone and they bring it up and you don't kind of address it, or you don't somehow reaffirm it, you lost a chance to witness, because you never know when you'll get that back.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of going out of your way, yes, maybe, just depending on the situation.
Yeah.
So if you see someone maybe doing wrong, then you should call them out, or you should help somebody that was just wronged and be there for them. You know, there's been times when I'd go into the bathroom and there's a girl crying in there. That could be a moment of talking to her, calming her down, showing her love in a way that makes her kind of want to ask me more, talk to me more about things. If she doesn't, I'm not going to be like, well, you can't leave until I talk to you about this, because it's kind of like I'm just a messenger. And if that small seed was planted with how I was acting, then I would hope that would work. Yeah. But you have to also make it known. Otherwise, it's just, you know, charitable person. Yeah. So
then how do you feel about the people who do, like, hold signs and, like, yell at people at conventions or whatever?
Oh, no, I don't like that at all. Obviously. It's just, I feel like you're losing an opportunity to... You're invoking rage, and that's actually biblically not right. You're not supposed to invoke rage in people. Yes, you're supposed to call them out on their sin if they are, but, you know, you have to do it in the right context. It's also more of, like, in that sense, a Christian brother or sister holding up another Christian brother or sister.
Yeah. So there has to be sort of a relationship in place before...
I think so, but it's also how I'm kind of starting to be, is just trying to be more blunt and firm. I used to be like, you know, you do you, whatever, man. But if someone were to just straight up ask me, I would try and be more honest about, well, since you straight up brought up the can of worms, let's dive into it. So it's that kind of thing. But I don't think you should stand out on the corner and hold signs saying about how God hates them, because they're literally going against what the Bible says about God's relationship with us. So they're losing that opportunity.
Okay, so even more specific. Okay. So what about those who willingly choose not to go down that path?
Of faith?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, by my beliefs, I believe that if you are a believer in Christ, you're saved. And if not, it's hell, unfortunately. But at the same time, I've been studying more up on that, and it's kind of interesting to me, because a lot of people would get offended if you tell them that, right? Yeah. So I kind of want to ask them, I'm like, well, if you're choosing not to go down that path anyway, and hell is essentially void of God, you're already kind of void of God in that way. So how is it offensive to say that? I think it's depending on people's point of view of who they've interacted with that have told them they're going to hell and burning in fire or whatever. So it's all about just the conversation you have with the person. I mean, you can't force anybody to believe it. You just have to be honest with them. Yeah. With what you believe is true. What I know is true.
Yeah. I appreciate more that you're honest in that you want to be evangelical, but also not so militant that it's off-putting.
Yeah, no, militants... I mean, with certain things, like, you can't be militant about, but I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be a pushover either. Yeah. I don't want to be like, oh, well, yeah, you know, you can do what you want to do, because I'm like, this thing has transformed my life and made me so happy, and has affected me in such a great way. Like, I want to share that with everybody, and I want them to have it. But, you know, you can't force someone to take it, unfortunately, but you can sure as heck try and sell it to them, but you have to sell it to them in a way that makes them want it. And usually the best way to do that is with your actions and your relationship with them. Like a constant, ongoing relationship with them. You can't expect it to be in like a hour-long church service and they better have an altar call moment. It can't be pushed by emotions. You can't emotionally abuse them into choosing this. Mm-hmm. With me, I would even say that it's been an ongoing process because you're constantly learning. But I mean, like, once you have it, you have it. It's not gone. So you just have seasons of doubt or whatever. Mm-hmm. So,
difficult question.
Oh,
what about
those
that are evangelical in other religions? What can you do about Muslims, for example?
I think with that, it just all comes back to conversations more. Like, one of the podcasts I mentioned, These Go to 11, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They had a Muslim on their podcast, and they just had a conversation with him about their different views, and they were very respectful with each other. And I've kind of learned from their example. Yeah. They've also had other atheists and stuff on, and it's just this very good conversation of, well, we may not believe in the same things right now, but, they're doing their part of trying to witness to this person what makes them so happy. They can only do so much. They can't feel that pressure of, well, what if they don't, choose what I chose? Yeah. It's my fault. Because a lot of religions will push that on you.
Yeah.
A lot of evangelicals will make you think it's your fault if your friends aren't saved or whatever. But it's not your fault because it has to be a transformative thing in them, and you can only do so much. Yeah. So it's all about, back to that point, it's just having the conversation.
Sure.
So...
I'm not going to make this about me, as you can tell, but I
don't care if you do.
But then also, while there's also, those willing to have a conversation, there's also, I bring up Muslims more so because they're, one, more prominent right now, but also the fact that Islam sort of pushes people to be sort of that forward about it.
Okay.
And so, what if there isn't a conversation willing to be had?
Well, specifically, within that topic, or just with the person at all?
With a person at all.
Okay. So, if you don't even have a chance, you're not saying that they don't want to talk to you about your religion, they'll talk to you about other things? They just don't want to talk to you at all?
No, they're, at least, with, the Muslim situation, it's just, they are not going to have that conversation.
Right. That kind of area gets hard for me to answer. It's kind of a gray area because there are missionaries that have tried to do that, and obviously it's very dangerous. But it's one of those things where I also believe that kind of God knows who is his, right? So, and within the sovereignty of God, those people will be talked to at some point or have some sort of influence of their life, whether they know it or not. So if the conversation can't be had at all, it's just...
Yeah.
I still believe that if they don't have faith through Christ, it's hell, unfortunately. Yeah. But that will be presented to them in their life at some point for them to choose, or to not choose, but to be transformed by, if it is to happen for them. Yeah. Does that make sense? A way is always going to be provided. Yeah.
I know earlier you said that, you should not feel guilt for, your friends or whatever who, but how do you feel about just, the idea of hell at all?
Oh, I hate it. I don't want anybody to have to be there, obviously. Yeah. When I said the thing about guilt with friends and family, it's more so... because you shouldn't feel like it was your responsibility. To an extent, it can be your responsibility. But if it doesn't happen, you can't be beating yourself up for it the rest of your life. But obviously, if it doesn't happen, it's still a huge regret, and it's still extremely distressing. Yeah, honestly. But yeah, I hate it. I don't want anybody to have to ideally, in an ideal world, everybody would kind of
Yeah.
come back to God through Christ. But
yeah. Well,
the separation is there, you know?
What is the ideal world then?
Oh, man, I mean,
Yeah.
just like paradise, how it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of in worship together under one God, Christ.
So is that...
God of the Bible.
Yeah, but is that on Earth?
I mean, like, it won't happen on Earth. It's like, especially with my beliefs, it's like, you know, there's the whole different eschatology, which is the study of end things or end times or whatever. There's a bunch of different beliefs within that, and we won't have to open that can of worms. But it's essentially the paradise will happen after the end. So, in a lot of different beliefs, think that you're just up in heaven eternally. A lot of other views think it's a new world, new earth is created. With all that believed. So that kind of thing.
What is your belief?
Well, that would be cool if it happened before that happened. But mine is the new heaven, new earth is created. And we're all kind of come back here just to keep doing eternally. But with kind of sin and everything gone. It's hard to logically imagine because we're human. So we can't imagine not having error. But that would be ideal. Because that is the ideal.
There is something that at least I personally don't like, and that I am going to challenge.
What's that?
Among the many other things that I could. And is mostly just, what is this belief that humans are inherently bad?
Well, it came from the fall, which was Adam and Eve, and the introduction of sin into the world. Is what kind of caused, and within like at least Reformed theologies, they call it like total depravity, which sounds really intense. But it's essentially, yes, humans are all error. Yeah. Even Christians and these perfection people, like they have sin and error in their life. Which to me, it does sound kind of not cool, but at the same time, it's like, you know that you're not just this horribly scarred thing if you mess up, because everybody has that. Does that make sense? And you don't like that.
It's, again, it is more personal, but like, it also has to do with like the potential for goodness. And so, if you just believe that, well, we just suck, then...
well, you don't want to believe that and then not have a goal to be better.
Exactly.
But my belief, obviously, and what I believe is true, is you can only get that through Christ. Because he was perfect. And he died and was sacrificed to cover all of that.
Yeah.
So... even though you're going to be constantly struggling if you're a Christian, you're slowly working your way towards to be more Christ-like. That's what Christian is, little Christ. So that's the only way you can get close. I mean, I think even if you're not a Christian, you can obviously be a very good person and be very much, but I feel like you're always going to be kind of feeling empty somehow, and you won't know how to fill that or feel that contentment.
Okay.
So, for me personally, it's turned into my contentment. I filled it.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I die tomorrow, I'd be totally fine. Like, I don't feel like I'd miss anything. Because it's all temporary kind of thing.
Yeah.
So...
is there, like, a sort of, for lack of a better word, enlightenment within life? Because, like, as you said, like, we get better as we become more Christ-like. Does that journey finish, or does the journey just end when we die?
It ends when you die. I mean, because death is of this world now, unfortunately, which originally it wasn't supposed to be. That's why death is so uncomfortable for a lot of people. We don't want to have that void, because we were all meant to live together in paradise, and that was destroyed with sin coming into the world. Okay. So that's kind of where the depravity came from. And so no, you won't ever become perfect. You won't ever become Christ-like entirely. You will still fail, but you can you can be totally unhappy and be failing, but you can still have joy and peace in what you believe.
Okay.
Because it kind of fills that void where you're like, okay, and even if I just totally fail here, this is temporary. Mm-hmm. Not saying that you should just like, slack off the rest of your life, because naturally as you transform, you'll want to do better, mm-hmm. which, well, I guess this one I landed on is Luke 12:21. Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth but not have a rich relationship with God. And it constantly has a theme of that where it's, if your soul is not content and filled with Christ, then you will lose it. And that's nothing, and that's like losing everything compared to just losing temporary stuff on earth. If any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. Mm-hmm. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? So it's kind of like...
And what chapter?
That was Matthew 16:24 through 26.
Cool.
So it's just kind of further reaffirming where it's like, because death is in this world, everything feels so temporary and like it'll end. So people are constantly trying to achieve more, but they never feel content. As soon as they reach that level, they're like, oh, if only I had more. But you never get there because you end up just dying and nothing. So if you have kind of the eternal soul part figured out, you can have that peace while you're still going through life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Getting away from the negative of everything. What has faith done for you in your life?
Oh, man. Well, I used to be a very bratty, vulgar child. Lonely. I put a lot of joy and investment into only friends, and those that literally backfired on me to where they totally abandoned me, backstabbed me, left me for dead, practically. So after just kind of being like drugged to church tooth and nail, finally invited, and I chose to go, I was introduced to, wow, even if everything else kind of fails, at least I know that it's temporary here, and then Christ and God are constantly with me, reassuring me, even if people fail me. So that was what kind of transformed me. And anytime I go through something hard, like my brother had a near fatal accident, he was very not expected to live. Like they were practically calling it dead on the scene. So, but now he's made a pretty much full recovery. And it was only through my faith and prayer and whatever else was happening at that point that helped me get through that anxiety. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done, because I have bad anxiety problems. So having my faith has helped me like kind of grab a hold of that, because it's not worth worrying. For tomorrow will take care of itself, which that's another verse in here. And I don't have to memorize that well, but yeah.
I more want to ask, like, for the positive effect, because if people got through like the whole slug of like theological
when they're like,
mess,
oh God,
right before that, then
I don't want to talk to this Meghan chick anymore. Yeah, regardless of negative theological sounding stuff aside, it's all about, and then just grace. It's like I'll mess up every day, but then I'm like, oh, even though I messed up. And that's not something like, oh, well, I'm just going to, party on Saturday and be forgiven on Sunday. It's not that mindset, but it's the mindset of, you're constantly going to not feel good enough, not feel content enough, but through Christ you can. And that's what really affected me. And then knowing that I was meant to, and I was chosen to kind of have this, and transformed to even want to have this, is pretty cool. It's like, whoa. So.
Is there any advice that you have for people who are wandering how? I guess lost, don't really know
what they are,
where they're going.
I guess it's just for them to know that regardless how lost and wandering they are, God's in a constant pursuit over them, like running sprint down the road kind of thing. But it's always going to feel kind of silent. So they have to kind of be willing to be open-minded to what he has to say and reach out to them. And it may not be what they want to hear, but that's the whole part of that whole transformative process. He'll take you as you are. And as soon as he has you, he is not letting you go. Regardless of how far you stray again. You can't lose that salvation once you have it. And I think a lot of problems within Christianity is other denominations believe otherwise.
Yeah.
But the real message of grace is you don't lose it. It's always there. You just have to seek him out, which is what that verse in Matthew said.
Yeah.
So he's always there, always waiting.
Yeah.
And he'll be ready. You come to him. So positive things, guys.
Yeah. I certainly hope that if you're curious about faith, that in some way that you led some people down that way as you would like them to. And
if I got confusing at all, I apologize.
That's fine.
I kind of ramble.
And if it helps you at all, like, go for it. You never know what's down that road. But yeah, that's... Okay, so, what am I saying? Right.
Yes.
Plug things.
Plug things.
Yeah.
Okay. For myself?
Yeah.
Well, my Twitter is monarch_star. I kind of tweet random nerdy things or deep things and a lot of memes and GIFs. Because I'm a dork. Obviously, I'm liking to study theology and stuff. So, and then the two podcasts earlier, I'll repeat them: Popcorn Theology and These Go to 11. Those guys on those podcasts are kind of significantly what helped me really be interested in restudying and kind of committing to everything and diving back more into the Word. And they really, Popcorn Theology specifically, was what kind of started it. And what they do is they pick apart media, culture, and things, and they find the Christian parallels, and they find the gospel within things. And they kind of talk about that whole, don't be a mindless consumer. Always think about what you're taking in.
Yeah.
So they're really awesome. And then other than that, my photography page is Shutterblur Photography. Spelled exactly as it sounds, all one word, except for photography. On Facebook.
Yeah.
So, that's all I have.
Yeah.
Plug-wise.
Megan took the pictures of me that are on my website.
Yay! I'll finish editing things eventually. It's a constant process.
And then some of the pictures that I put, like, on my Instagram, that are, like, of Sable, I've put that one there. Oh, do you want people to follow you on Instagram? Are you public on Instagram?
Oh, yeah. Instagram, I'm Monarch Star. All one word. I mainly post my illustration stuff to Instagram. So if you want to check that out, that's there.
Yeah, Megan's a really good artist.
Yeah.
And then, you already know who I am. So
Who are you?
I'm Santiago Ramones. Sorry, I said that at the beginning of the podcast.
You did.
And I always end each one with my personal religion. If I would even call it that. But at least what I believe, which are my three things. Love never fails. It's going to be okay. I might be wrong. Thanks for listening.